Okay, so these are the base makeup layers, and we're just going to go back in here and name our layers so that we recognize what they're doing. On the Mama's Powder Copy, I'm just going to call this Extra Touch Up. And then on the Ager Sharpen layer, that's the overall sharpening, and I've got that at 61%. And so this will just say overall sharpening. And then up here, both of these are just doubled up, and they're sharpening the eyes, lips, and jewelry. So I'll just type that in. The sparkly stuff. And I want to take another look. I'm going to just hold down my space bar and the control key. On a PC, that would be space bar, command key on a Mac. That toggles the zoom tool. So I can just click and release, and I'm zoomed in on the image. Then I can use my space bar to toggle the hand tool. When I press that down, see the little hand, and when I've got the space bar held down, I can click down on the mouse button and pan my view around. Now, I'm going to come back here and clear up a couple of blemishes, and I'm going to do that by decreasing the sharpening in those areas. So I'm going to come back and highlight the overall sharpening layer, and in order to conceal the sharpening in the blemish areas, I have to paint with black. If you don't know the masking mantra by now, I'm going to tell it to you. It's white reveals and black conceals. White reveals the set of instructions or the flavor you've got set here, whereas black is going to conceal that. So the instructions here are to sharpen. That's what's inside here is an Ager sharpening thing. So anyhow, with black, I'm going to come over here and just tap this little blemish. Boom. And that really hides it quite well. So I'll just do that in a couple other little spots that I see here. Decrease the sharpening. It's less emphasis on the texture when you do that. Okay, so we've done this all with these layers here, these groups, and we haven't even touched the spot healing brush or the healing brush or the clone tool. Now there are instances where you will have to do that, and I did that in the last tutorial, but in this one we don't have to. So that all looks pretty good to me. I'm going to just click on the sharpening layer again and bump up the sharpening a bit just to see overall how that looks, because I do like it kind of sharp. And let me just zoom in to about 50% here, and let's see, at 100 it's up there. Now I think I'm going to come down probably around 75%, and then I'll hit Control minus on a PC, Command minus on a Mac to zoom out. And now we're going to organize this into another set. I'm in CS2, and this works in CS3, where you can highlight a particular layer or a group, and if you want to have everything temporarily linked in a contiguous fashion, you shift click on the bottom group or layer and they're all highlighted. But you can't do this in version CS and Photoshop 7, and what I'm going to do is put this in another layer group, and normally I would just hold the shift key down and click on this folder icon, but I'm going to do it the manual way, just for those persons that have version CS or version 7 to group all these in. And I would just simply select a group down here, or it would be set in the previous versions, and then I'm going to just name this the base makeup layer, and then I would just drag and drop these particular sets inside here. When it's outlined and highlighted, it's going to drop and indent, and so now it's inside of the base makeup folder. So I can do this, and I'm starting at the top, and they'll come in going down. So start at the top and drag in, and they'll fall in at the bottom, the same order that they're in right now. So all those groups are now indented and inside the base makeup group. But this would be called a set in version 7 and CS. So we're just managing our layers palette here. So the next thing that I might want to do is look at the image, and like I said, you can sometimes I like to do things out of order. I'm going to work in levels this time so that you can have an understanding of how to mix colors better in that adjustment. Last time we used curves, and just to show you the comparison, I'm going to open up curves here. And by the way, if you want we want these next layers to come in outside of the base makeup layer, so be sure before you do it that your setter group is collapsed, because if it's open, then it might pop inside of there. You can always drag it out, but it gets a little tricky and sticky sometimes. So have that group collapsed, and I'm going to select curves. And if I wanted to overall darken this image, I click a point in the middle of the line here, this diagonal line, and as we went over in the first makeover tutorial, in the composite channel, when you drag upward or to the upper right, anything above that diagonal line is going to lighten. When you drag downward to the lower left, it's going to darken. Okay, so just have that. I'm going to cancel out of here and show you how we do that in levels. I'm going to invoke levels, and instead of clicking a point in the middle of that diagonal line, we're going to click on this middle gray slider here underneath the histogram window in the levels dialog box. This is called the gamma slider or the midpoint slider, and if we drag to the left, it's going to brighten the image, and if we drag to the right, it's going to darken the image. And notice how the numbers change up here in the input levels dialog box. The default number here, if you want it right back in the middle, is 1.00. So I want to darken this a little bit, just give it a little bit more mood. So I'm going to just drag it to 0.91. And you can click this preview box on and off to look at a before and after. Just gives it a little richer flavor. Okay, so I'll name that layer Overall Darken, so I know what it's for. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put some eyeshadow on her. Continue to part 5 of this series.